Got the special insert. Fits in there nice. I'm going to epoxy that in there. And the brake shoe fits in there nicely. 5 thousandths clearance in there. That should be plenty. So, and I paint my brake shoes so they won't rust. Here's a brake handle. I made a little insert to put in there and a few little pieces of brazing rod to hopefully that would melt, but I couldn't tell. But I built it up here and I tested it, and I can't bend that sucker or break it apart, so hopefully that's going to be strong enough. So that's good. I filed it down, the brass on there, just enough so it fits inside of the handlebar. Goes in there good. Oops, can you see that? Get it in front of the camera here. Okay, I got to make my pin. And another problem I ran into here, I'll get this guy out. Somehow they drilled another hole next to it, whatever the problem was there. But putting a screw in there, I think that's too loose. So what I'm going to do is drill it out and tap it 1/4 and make a little insert with this 832 thread in it, so that'll go in there. Hopefully that'll work out all right. I'm not sure if we're going to have this plated or whatever. I could just fill it up with epoxy, but then you can't plate it. So we'll see how this goes out. After that epoxy sets with the little insert in there, here's the fork that's going to go on there. That fits good, so there'll be no problem. After the epoxy dries, we're going to drill for the pin. The other end, we're not going to do that yet until we get this finished down here. Then we're going to put this in the lathe and polish it down. Our project is putting an insert where this threaded hole is real loose, and it has an extra hole next to it, making it very weak. Don't want to take a chance with that. So what I'm going to do here, I got little things called transfer punches in there. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. In case you don't know what a transfer screw is, let me show you here. Just to show you, this is a little bit bigger. This is a 1/4 one. But you get these little screws. These are hardened. There's a little hex on there, and there's a center punch mark on there. And on this end, there's a little like socket wrench where you tighten it and then loosen it and take it out. And that's what I use to transfer the holes onto my template. This plastic around the hole of this transfer screw, it's real loose, and I want to take up the slack and try and get that transfer screw in the center of the hole. I don't want it slopping one way or the other. I want it as accurate as possible. But I have to make a cover plate here to hold this, and it's going to be my drill jig. I'll show you the steps as we go along. I'm going to transfer the holes. You can barely see them. Okay, now you enlarge that hole with a bigger center punch, and those are accurately locating where those 4 threaded holes are. Here's the insert that I made. I'll give you the details in that in a little while. I want to see how close it's going to come to the edge here. I have an 832 screw in there. Screw that in. Now if you can see that, it comes right up to the edge of the flattened part of the casting. So we're going to go ahead and use the fixture here to enlarge the hole so I can tap it. Okay, I got my template screwed down on there. Any loose play, I pushed it up that way and tightened it real tight. This hole here is a number 7. That's the tap drill for a 1/4. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's see if we can tap that and see how it comes out. Took the cover plate off, and as you can see, there's still quite a void from that extra hole that's in there. So to tap it, I'm going to put this template back on there to see if it can help to keep the tap away from the extra hole and tap into this material here. Okay, we're ready to tap the hole. I use a tap guide block. I don't know if you're familiar with that. 632, 832, 1032, quarter inch, and 5/16. It guides the tap to keep it perpendicular to the work surface. Well, let's start here with a little thread cutting oil. And we want a quarter inch one right here. There's the hole. Hold that block firmly down onto your work surface. And let's see how she goes. We're through. I'll put the last screw in. And there's nothing visible on our insert, which is great. Below the cover. Thought it might stick out a little bit. Just made it. There it is, complete. That insert's going to be Loctited, but not until I put the brake handle in and the down tube. So that's coming up next. Probably wonder how I made that insert, how he handled something that small. I took a piece of threaded rod, 1/4 and I made this special nut. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of squished in there. But what I did, you take the nut and you slit it with a saw, put it in the vise and a bandsaw, slid it all the way through to the threads. Then on part way around this 2 hexes over, you cut it part way. You don't go all the way through. And the same way over here. So these are the jaws of the chuck on the lathe, and they squeeze on the other part, not on this flat, but on this one here. And that tightens up on the piece of threaded rod that's in there. And then you face it off and drill it and tap it. You're all set. Well, here's the gooseneck. I'm preparing it to braze up the slot that I cut in there to get the bearing out. Give you a little close-up view of that. Extends from here all the way down to there. I've got a tube inside and a little piece of aluminum that goes below the cut mark there. I don't want it to get brazed onto this. And that's in there to keep it from shrinking. I don't want this to shrink and then have to grind it out. So that's our next step. Today is we're going to put the brake handle inside the handlebar assembly. Okay, I made this special pin to go through there because the hole here is larger than the hole here. So we have to have a step pin to go through there. So it's 2 pieces. It's going to go through like this, and it'll be centered in the handlebar assembly itself, and then I'll braze it on the side. I'll come back after I get that done. Okay, I've put the pin in and brazed it on both sides, polished it up, and we're ready to add the tube itself. Now the original braze was a little bit offset from center, so we're going to follow that same procedure here. Get the right end here. Now the way you have to do this, we put the tapered pinhole in the fork. You get that assembled and on a flat surface. Of course, this is the back end here. I put this guy on, put the tapered pin in. You put the tapered pin in there, come from the other side. And then this, get it in the camera here. This got to be flat. And you put your flux in there and start brazing away. There's no braze mark up there, it's all down here. Now I did this business here first because polishing it up, it's easier to manipulate around the polishing wheel, grinder, and whatever without the tube on there. Okay, that's our next project. We'll bring it back when it's done. I finished brazing this up. See if you can see that here. There's the braze right there. It's very hard to see. Polished it up. Came out really great. It's ready for plating now. Gooseneck here after a trip in the sandblaster. Came out pretty nice. There's no dents in it. It's actually in pretty good shape. I'm pleased with that. Here's the actual hole that I filled up that I cut with a saw to get the bearing out. And bearing fits in there nicely. This was a high ridge on here where they welded the two pieces together. They never did sand it all the way or file it all the way down. The head badge covers that up, so it's no big deal. Now this is ready to paint. Put the bushing back in. I'm going to use a JB weld to hold it in there. How is the brake shoe adjusted? Well, the brake rod is threaded, and you must screw the brake shoe up or down, and in order to do that, you have to remove the tapered pin. It gets a little dicey. It's easy when you take the wheel out, and then you have access to it. Good luck. Here's the completed gooseneck handlebar and fork assembly, painted and assembled onto a bike. I decided to have the handlebar assembly chrome plated. The handlebar portion on the top was pitted quite a bit, took a lot of sanding. It's not quite perfect, but it came out pretty nice. I needed this handlebar and gooseneck assembly for a special project. Well, here it is. I made a tandem bicycle for the Ingo bike, the Ingo bike tandem. It works pretty nice. I have a YouTube video. Go on YouTube and search Ingo Bike Tandem 2 to see it in action.